riding in from the
Right.
water.
Hello, hello, hello. How are
Hi.
you?
Grateful. How are you doing?
I am grateful too. We've had a couple of weeks off. Glad to be back
Yes,
and see your
yes.
face and
I know.
say hello. Like, there's been
Yes,
a lot going on.
I know. And you thought it was gonna slow down, I thought it was gonna slow down after COVID. And nope, it was just like, "That's a chapter, and here's the next chapter." So, we're chugging
Right?
along, Yeah.
Boy, isn't that true? I was talking to somebody because they're like, where you been? And I'm like, oh, for the past 6 years?
Right. Which block of time are you asking about
Right?
specifically? Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
funny.
So you're talking
Mm.
about, like, older catch-ups, people that you haven't seen for a while tapping in?
Right. Tapping
Yeah.
in and saying, "How are you?" Or I
Mhm.
just got back from the Art of Grieving retreat that I
Mhm.
did with Sheila K. Collins,
Tell
and
us
we were
about it.
up in the Pennsylvania. We were in the Highlands of Pennsylvania. It was
Mhm.
stunning. It was
Mhm.
beautiful. We were at a place called Laurelville Retreat Center, and,
Mhm.
it's a Mennonite retreat center that was just so welcoming and lovely, and I had an interplay friend that came that
Mhm.
we really hadn't touched base since COVID. And she was like, "I had no idea everything you've been through." And I was saying the same to her because, we both had our own things going
Yes.
on and just but it was one of those beautiful things, right? That
Mhm.
when you've got a good friend that even though you haven't been in touch, that when you see them, like you can catch up like it was you just saw them yesterday.
Yeah.
I I love that about friendships and that,
Yeah.
that grace we give each other when we're busy leading our lives, right? Because
Absolutely.
lives are full right now. Like, there's a lot
Yes.
going on. What about
Mhm.
you? How was your weekend?
Yeah, let's see, past weekend, worked, was grateful
Mhm.
for that, and when we talk about Memorial Day and, service and how far we've come to get where we are, I think about a couple of list of people, so really just a weekend of remembrance and gratitude. There's been a lot of stuff changing over here as far as logistics. So it was really about, even though it's a holiday weekend, what are we usually doing on the holidays and weekends? Working. So I was working, and
Mhm.
keeping the pace. Yep, keeping the pace.
Mm.
What about you? How was
Mm.
your weekend? Did you guys do anything specific?
I was traveling for Memorial Day
Right.
weekend to get to where I was working and doing the retreat,
Mhm.
and, it was beautiful. Like, I had a beautiful travel experience, which I don't take that for granted anymore with everything going on
Mm.
in airports
Mhm.
but,
Mhm.
yeah, it was a beautiful experience, and I hadn't I was gone the month of April, and then I came home, so it was my first I'd been home for probably about 4 weeks, and it was my first travel out.
Mhm.
Which poor Monty, my dog, for our listeners
Mhm.
who about Monty, he's a rescue puppy and he's half Scotty, half Corgi, and 100% stubborn. And he saw that suitcase come out and he started barking and telling my husband, "Wait, wait, look, don't let her go. Wait,
Mm.
last time
She's trying
she
to
was
leave.
gone for 3 weeks. Bring her
Mm.
back." 'Cause
Monty.
when I got home at the end of April, he sat on my feet for a couple of
Mhm.
weeks. Like, he's an
Mhm.
office dog anyways. Like, he's out because it's the podcast, but, usually he's in my office chair behind me or
Mhm.
he'll be at my feet. And literally for the first 2 weeks after I came home after that big trip, he sat on my feet. He's like, "No, ma'am. You are not allowed to go anywhere."
Aw,
But he
Monty.
did fine. He was good. He was glad when I came back, and,
Good.
but now I think I bless his heart, I think, "go" is now a trigger word when I say the word "go." He's like,
Mm.
"Wait, wait, what's happening?"
Mm.
But we'll get through it. We'll
Monty. Would you say rescue puppy, or is it rescue dog now? Will it always be rescue puppy, or when does it
Well, but
switch to
he was
dog?
rescued when he was a puppy.
Okay, okay, okay.
So, I don't know on the
Maybe
semantics
just
of
our
that,
dog now.
right? Our rescue dog, yeah.
I was
I mean,
wondering.
he's
Yeah.
5 years old. He just had his since the last time we were on air, he had his 5th birthday.
Aw, happy
So,
birthday,
happy
Monty.
birthday, Monty. Got a
That's
little whipped
beautiful.
cream, got a little pup cup, like,
Hello. Good, love a
right?
pup cup. And, y'all, when we talk about birthdays and celebrating travel, I think about how do we make all this happen, the financial wellness behind it. That's why I'm
Right.
super excited about what we're talking about today, this financial wealth. versus financial wellness. Ooh,
Right?
we have a really
I
good
can't wait
conversation
for
coming
this
up.
conversation.
I
Let's
know.
do our official check-in and let's get this party started.
Okay, let's do it. Hey, y'all, I'm Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial entrepreneur, Amazon bestselling publisher, author, and all natural product manufacturer. I'm a champion for your natural self care, sustainable business care, and overall intentional wellness.
Hi, y'all. I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, best-selling author and publisher, and a dancing social worker who helps you upgrade your self and community care.
Together, we are a podcast rooted in the 8 dimensions of wellness and the co founders of the Women Connected in Wisdom community.
And we like to get together every week with special guests for intentional conversations about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness. How do we do this?
So much.
Well, especially around financial wellness right now. Like, we have
Mhm.
a big thing happening in Georgia because we've had and I'm probably going to say it wrong, but we've had a pause on the gas tax, a 30-cent
Mm,
pause
mm.
that was ending today. And so all my feed was lighting up. I was getting text, everybody go
What do
fill
you
up your gas
mean?
tank.
A
So
30-cent pause?
there was it was I think today our gas prices went up 30 cents in Georgia.
Whew.
So there was a tax that they had paused in the state of
Mm,
Georgia. So we were paying probably 30 cents less than most people in the United States. We were
mm,
under $5 for sure.
mhm.
And that ended today.
Wow.
So yeah, that's a big jump for people.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah. So, when I think about financial wellness and financial wealth versus financial wellness, because I know a lot of people are, having big stuff around money right now. And I'm
Yeah,
excited to have this conversation about like the emotional side of money and what we're doing. You good for me to read this definition?
absolutely.
All right, let's do it. So, financial wellness is an intentional approach to your relationship with money as a tool. It includes stability with current finances, increasing positive financial behaviors like budgeting, reducing debt, saving, and investing. Financial wellness incorporates knowledge and skills that helps to change behavior, reduce financial stress, and the creation of a strategic financial plan to reach your desired financial goals. That's how we define financial wellness at Women Connected Wisdom. I'm hoping that definition goes with our guest policy of financial wellness. I'm curious about that.
Let's see. Let's see, and y'all, today we're talking to Terry, and with over 25 years of experience managing the full spectrum of her clients' financial lives, everything from accounting and bill payment to coordinating with wealth managers, estate attorneys, and insurance agents, Terry K. Vickery brings an unmatched, real-world perspective to the emotional side of money. Her sociology degree from Stanford and lived experience through dramatic personal financial shifts give her a rare blend of academic insight and deep empathy. Her authenticity and hands-on expertise resonate with the readers across generations, making her voice both trustworthy and transformational. Welcome to the stage, Terry.
Thank you so much.
You're very
We are so
welcome.
glad to hear you. And I realized as Shannon was reading your bio, your new book is not mentioned in there.
Oh,
So you wanna tell our listeners or show them your new book and tell them
sure.
Yes.
about your new book?
It is
Oh,
Oh,
The
look at that.
Emotional Side of Money, a roadmap to financial wellness. So, what
Ah,
could be more perfect than our conversation today?
right.
yes.
So,
So,
Terry, tell us how you wrote this book. Where did this come from?
Well, it probably started even before I was born because we all have a money story that we inherit. And mine was of scrappy, amazing women who were the breadwinners for 3 generations before me. And the men left all the way back to my great grandmother in the early 1900s when men just did not do that and women
wow.
didn't support their families. But my great
Mm,
grandmother did. And so she died when my grandmother was 16. And so my grandmother married a man, and they had 2 daughters, one of whom was my mother. And my grandfather went off during the Depression to work in the Civilian Conservation Corps in another state with the idea that he would send money home. Well, he never came back and he never sent money home. And so my grandmother had to find a way to support her daughters. And fortunately, she had gone to college, also at a time when women rarely did that. And so she taught school and had her teaching certificate, and by day, and by night she waitressed in a restaurant. But as a result of that, my mother and my aunt pretty much raised themselves from the time they were preteens. And so consequently, my mother got pregnant at 15. And then she had me when she was 19. And her husband was in Korea when I was born. And when he got back, they divorced. He left the state in order specifically to avoid paying child support. So here's this young woman who had a ninth grade education and 2 little mouths to feed, and plus her own, and she managed. And so I am so grateful. You talked about gratitude. I am so grateful to have come from these women, because when my own life got tough, I knew what that looked like and how to manage it, and survived it.
Yes. Yes, and we love stories like that, on Women Connected in Wisdom, not of what we thought would happen, and then sometimes where life takes us, but of women persevering and being intentional about what they wanna see and making it happen on a daily basis.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Terry, will you call their names?
mhm.
So your
Oh,
mom's name
I
is
would love to. Well, she went by Jody, but her
Uh,
name, in- she disliked her name tremendously. It was Norma
mm.
Joanne.
Ooh.
So she was called Joanne at school, but her husband, her boyfriend, who became her husband, he
Mhm.
called her Jody. And so her whole adult life, she was Jody.
Joey.
And my grandmother was Ethel. And the book
Mm,
is dedicated to her and my other grandmother. And her mother was Della. And
Mm.
one of my favorite books is The Gift of the Magi. And
mm,
the main characters were Della and Jim. And it was a
Mm.
long time. That was my favorite book from high school. And it was a
Mhm.
long time before I made the connection about Della.
mm,
So
Mm.
thank you for asking that.
Right? Well, I love hearing those stories because it took me right to my grandmother,
mm,
who was a working mom and who was a college graduate back when a lot of women did not graduate from college, and a lot of women didn't work outside of the home, especially white women. And that it brought me like her scrappiness and who she was. And so thank you for sharing that.
You're
Um,
welcome.
yeah, that is. What do you think, Shannon?
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking about your Aunt Joan,
Mhm.
and was it your grandma that had the teaching license as well? I know your mom did, but was your grandma a teacher too?
My grandma was a bookkeeper.
A
She
bookkeeper.
ran a doctor's office. And
Nice.
my grandmother, when this is my grandmother, Letha Yant Mahoney, and when computers came out, she was in her late 70s and
Mhm.
she was taking a computer class.
That's
She
what it
was like,
was.
when she
Mhm.
passed away, she had a brain aneurysm, but she was a forward, like doing things. She was a trailblazer and
Mhm.
raised 5 kids. Like, I mean, I was just getting she was 14. I was 14 when she passed away, and I was
Mhm.
just getting to know her as a person
Mhm.
because, I was getting to where I understood that my grandparents were people, not just my grandparents.
Yeah, yeah.
When she passed away. But I
Mm,
think about her often and her resiliency and her scrappiness, like you talked about, Terry. Like yeah, it's incredible. So
mhm.
let's talk about these money stories. So I love that you said it started before you were born.
Yeah.
For somebody that's just listening, they're like, "What do you even mean about a more money story, Terry?"
Mm.
Like, tell
Well,
us about that.
so we all hear things growing up, whether it be from our parents, aunts and uncles, regardless of where we hear it, we hear things. We often hear arguments about how money was spent, or who spent it, or who made the decision to spend it, or the fact that there's not enough, or how are we going to pay the bills this month? And we process all of what we hear through whatever the little brain of whatever age we are at that time. And rarely do any questions get asked. If they do, oftentimes the answer is we don't talk about money. So there's not an opportunity to kind of get it straightened out. Well, what was meant by that? When you said Uncle Harry never had two nickels to rub together, what did you mean by that? And then, oh, I've heard all these things about Uncle Harry. And he was kind of not the most favored person in the family. Kids are smart, and they're very intuitive, and they pick up on stuff, but they're processing it through whatever age they are. As a result of that, we don't get a chance to kind of check those money stories. So that's what I mean about the money stories. It's just the things we absorb, because very few parents are actually teaching their children intentionally about money. It's one of the topics that is taboo for the most part. And so they don't have a place to test that information that they're absorbing and how they heard it.
So, Terry, we've talked about that a little on Women Connected in Wisdom before, and I kind of have a theory I want to run by you. And Shannon, I saw you were about to come off, so you wanna ask a question before I
No, go ahead. Go ahead and run the theory and let's see where we get.
So I definitely grew up in a household where you didn't talk about money. And my mom thought she taught us about money by example, but really didn't teach us. And now I've raised two kids where I think I've done an okay job, but not a great job. And the places that I think I haven't done a great job, what I'm realizing is because that was my own insecurity, or my own, I didn't feel comfortable to teach it, or didn't feel like I was doing a good job with it at that period in my life. So I think that's my theory, is that it's around how comfortable you are with the actual process to start. But I want to hear about that from you, and what your theories are in the book, and how we fix that.
Do you want to hear that first, or do you want Shannon to talk?
We'll hear that first, and then we'll
Okay.
give Shannon.
Okay.
You
Shannon will
first,
have a
Terry.
great question. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So I agree. I think it's a very reasonable theory. And I think the focus of my book is to talk about money and to think about what you think about money. Most of us have never done that. We've absorbed whatever we've absorbed. We end up taking those stories into our marriages or into our relationships, into our partnerships, and then we pass them on to our children. And we don't even think of you are light years ahead of a lot of people in that you are intentional about wanting to teach your children about money. And if I could suggest, give yourself a break, because, maybe you didn't do it, quote, right, but there is no right. So you certainly didn't do it wrong. But the fact that you are even raising the issue and you're wanting to be intentional about teaching them, so few parents are doing that. So just pat yourself on the back and give yourself some compassion
Good
and
job,
be glad
Christine.
that you are doing what you're doing. And
Yeah.
they'll be fine, because they first place, it's an open conversation that you can have. How many kids cannot have that conversation? I'm talking about older children whose parents are now at a place that let's call it the middle generation of people, say maybe 40s, 50s, and they don't know if their parents have enough money to survive for retirement. But they've been raised all their lives that we can't talk about money. So are you going to sit down and say, oh, let's have a conversation about your finances, mom and dad? No, not going to happen. So what you're doing is you're changing the trajectory of the pattern, so that instead of passing along this money story that you inherited, you are being intentional about the legacy that you are giving them. And that is huge, Christine. That is huge.
Mm. Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you. Because I am that sandwich generation right now, and, as our listeners know, my dad passed away about 2 years ago, and this all comes up around grief and loss and death, and when one parent dies and the other one's still there, or any relative really, because there is a whole business around death and money I'm still not like, my mom, I'll have to ask questions very gently and be like, she mentioned something the other day, and usually I would just let it pass on. I was like, "Okay, mom, are you okay? Is this like?" She's like, "Oh yeah, da, da, da," like, and she caught herself. But that you saying your uncle didn't have two nickels to rub together, and I grew up with the money doesn't grow on trees,
Mhm.
and really, yeah, it's so fascinating. Shannon, what was your question, or what were you thinking about?
Yeah, I was thinking about how to ask when the conversation changes, right? Like I get there's books catered to children that help us have these conversations with them appropriate for age, right? But we're not talking just about bedtime stories. We're specifically talking about family assets, how things are set up, what's going to be passed on, all these things that would need to be organized. So one place or one checkpoint in my mind where I think about is kind of the age Christine was just talking about, where we come out of adolescence and we're starting to see everybody as individuals and knowing that their stories, we're building our circle that we get our trusted information from, right? When
Right.
would you say is the beginning of these higher level financial conversations as far as the family bank is concerned with the children?
Well, certainly it depends on the child.
That makes
The
sense.
personality of the child and the
Mhm.
maturity of the child, and even
Mhm.
how the child feels about money.
Yeah.
Because I am amazed at the number of families that I work with where there might be 3 children very close in age,
Mhm.
and one of them will be a saver, and they just don't wanna spend money, and they don't you they they're they wanna watch their bank account grow,
Mhm.
and another one will by the time they get their next week's allowance, they might have 50 cents left if they're lucky,
Mhm.
and then another one is just a non-issue. And these kids grew up with the same parents in the same
Mhm.
household, and yet they have such different ideas around money. So
And
I
personalities around their money.
That
Yeah,
makes so much
absolutely.
sense. That
and
makes
I
sense.
think they're hardwired. I really do, because
Oh,
I just have seen so many variances within the same families that I
mhm.
can't make I just can't come up with any other reason to explain it.
Mhm.
Okay, that's an interesting because I have 2 children, Terry, and one's a saver and one's a spender.
Yeah,
And, we grew up with the phrase in our household of, "Oh, you've got champagne taste on a beer budget."
beer pub.
And
Yep,
that's what
beer
I say
puncher.
about
Yep.
about my oldest is, "Oh, she got champagne taste on this beer budget."
Mm.
Um, so it's fascinating that you think that's hardwired, that, like, we just come in that way.
And I have a question for you. Do you think there's anything wrong with having champagne taste?
No, no, I think we gotta raise the budget.
I think
Like,
when
I
that
think we
phrase when that phrase was enacted, whenever that might have been those decades ago, I
Mm.
think it came with an underlying message that there's
Ah,
something wrong with you for having champagne taste
champagne taste.
on a beer
Oh,
budget.
thank you for that. I'll check
Yeah,
in with my kiddo and make sure she's not receiving that message, right?
Mhm.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
what I was saying about your girls, Christine, when you were asking about it, is that we know they do so well at advocating for themselves,
Oh, they
you
do.
know? So I'm interested in what she'll say, but I think that they do a good job at, like,
They
holding their
do.
own and figuring it out, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think
This may not be the week
she
to
knows what
ask
she
me about
likes.
that because I got
Yeah.
one that's moving, and it's been like, big
Uh,
adult things that sometimes you get into situations you're like, "Whoa, whoa, I didn't think about that,"
yeah,
right? Or,
yeah.
um, but I also have this curiosity, Terry, because my husband and I are very different with money, and part of it was how we were raised
Mhm.
because, my parents were both public school teachers, and we didn't have a lot of excess money, but we our basic needs were met. Like,
Mhm.
we knew where we were sleeping. We knew food was gonna be on the table. Probably came from the garden, but, we had
Beautiful.
you know,
Yeah.
we had a safety net.
Mhm.
Like, I had security that I don't stress about it in the way that my husband did, because he didn't have that security. And, I find that interesting too, from all the number of kids I've worked with in my lifetime, that it does make a difference. Like, if you grew up with safety and security
Mhm,
for basic things, because
mhm, mhm.
we are for sure middle class and have been for a while. And my husband still has some deep-seated things, and he's probably going to listen to this, so I won't talk about it all, Joe. Apologies. But,
Safe space, yeah.
around how we work with money together. So it's a very interesting thing, and we've had a lot of conversations about it because we know we come from very different situations. But,
Mhm,
it doesn't go away. Like,
No.
yeah.
Well, and I would encourage you to have a conversation with your with daughters, they're both girls?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, to get a sense of whether they think about money more like mom or dad.
mhm,
Ah. I think probably like mom, because 'cause they're very comfortable knowing that I'm their safety net.
mhm,
So, I might be wrong, but, I get those if they're in trouble or something's not going quite right, they're okay to call and say, "Hey, this is what's going on." Um,
mhm.
Whereas Joe didn't have somebody to call, so he doesn't think about that, right? He
But
doesn't
it's
think,
also possible that some of his anxiety has rubbed off,
"Oh, that's
or that
true,"
they have picked up
around.
on that.
Uh,
And it
Mhm,
would be fascinating to have a conversation
mhm,
about, I have a list of questions for kids in the
mhm,
book.
okay.
In there's a chapter called Kids and Money. And
mhm.
so at the end of each chapter is something to think about. And most of them are for the reader or the listener to think about, just how did you come to think about money, or what is it that you think about money?
Right.
Who would you talk to about it? Who would you never talk to about it? Just all
Right.
kinds of questions. But in that chapter, there's a whole section for the parent, and then there's a section of questions to ask your kids. And it's
Mm,
questions like, how much is a lot of money? You know?
Mm,
And I have gotten wildly different answers from
mhm,
kids, and again in the same family, where I've done this exercise with kids in the same family. And, to just get a sense, okay, how much money do you want to have someday?
mhm.
And just find out what that number is and get a sense of what kinds of things are they thinking about? And that again just opens all kinds of conversation.
Oh, I love
so
that.
interesting. Especially because when I think about financial wealth versus financial wellness, what I've learned this year in New Jersey and moving and being at a shore community and seeing the difference in the economics is the difference of where my mindset is when the numbers decreased, right? For example, I was just listening to this Instagram video with this woman who took pay cut of multiple tens of thousands, but she still saw that her money grew, I think it was like over 300% over 10 years. And so even if your money is down and you didn't have the money that you had before, my question and what's kept my heart centered and calm through those moments is not, oh, what is a number? It's, do I have everything I need today? You know,
Exactly.
and thankfully every
Yes,
single day God is taking care of it and I have what I need.
that's
So
exactly right.
if I stay consistent on what I need to do, it'll go back up and there'll be the next position, there'll be the next lily pad, and I use that to keep myself steady when things can start have you spiraling and panicking and crashing out, as we say now, and doing all these different things that lead to even more difficult conversations in families, I'm sure. So I would love to talk about that, Terry. When you talk with your clients about financial wealth versus financial wellness, how do you have that conversation?
Well, the thing with financial wealth is so many people just keep changing the number.
Mhm.
So if you start with thinking, if I only had X number of dollars in the bank, I would
Right.
feel secure. And that's what I
100,000.
love about what Christine said, because
Yeah.
you were talking about security. I mean, that's what you were
Mhm.
describing.
Mhm.
And that is abundance. That's an abundant mentality. I love the uh image of that Stephen Covey was first place I ever heard it, of the difference between scarcity and abundance. And the idea of scarcity is there's a pie, and we each take our piece of pie. And if you take a piece of pie, then that's that much less pie for me. And so I have to pay attention to what everybody else is doing. Whereas abundance is there's a pie, and we all take our piece of pie. And if we run out, we make more pie. It's just that
Nice.
simple. And that's
Make
what
more.
you're describing, Shannon, is
Yes.
that you make more pie.
Yeah.
And that just goes to the core of how you feel about
Yeah.
money and what gives you a sense of financial wellness. Whereas people who are chasing financial wealth often will never get there because whatever that number is, they get to that number and then they think, oh, well, that's not enough, or inflation, or
we're seeing that play out right now in our country.
Yeah.
that is money that's in my 401k. And so I can't count that. Well, it's still money sitting in your 401k. So yeah, you could count it if you wanted to, but no, I don't want to count that. I mean, it's these games that we play with ourselves to satisfy our own sense of either scarcity or abundance.
Hey, y'all, this is a great place to take a break, take a deep breath, and hear from our awesome sponsors that make Women Connected in Wisdom podcast possible. Shannon, we are so grateful that Shayla Glow is the sponsor of the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. And I wanted to take this moment to ask you, when you think about the people who use Shayla Glow, who are we talking about?
That's a good question. I think about 3 groups, really. One, the group that's removing hair, right? So whether you're using laser hair removal, waxing, shaving, you got to make sure that you're putting back what you're taking out. The second group, I think about those with dry skin and the problems that might cause, right? The scars, itching, burning, whatever the situation is, you definitely need all 3 steps, right? The exfoliation, making sure you're taking the dead skin cells off. The oil, putting in the moisture, and then the shea butter with the aloe, sealing it, helping you heal. Those things help both groups, right? And third, for the third group is those with chronic illness. You know, the story is personally from cancer and different diseases that our population is dealing with on a daily basis throughout families as individuals. So I'm thinking about my mom and my grandmother and those around me with the same generational ties, right? And what positive, healthy habits we can start to make sure that we're maintaining our wellness, especially because the skin is like the cape, the exterior, the shield for your immune system. So with COVID, we have to be intentional about covering ourselves. And those are the groups I think about.
I love it. And you know what else I love about your product? It's all natural, handmade, and it smells great, y'all. So
esthetician tested. Yes, esthetician tested and approved. Yes. What about you? When you think about your company, what groups of people do you think about?
Well, you know, I work with individual coaching clients. I work in community classes and with corporate teams. And with all of them, I use a strength-based, embodied approach to help folks connect with themselves and access joy, reduce burnout, and build resilience. You know, especially during these times, I think we need it. I think we need all the hashtag partnership power we can get.
Yes.
But that's why I'm encouraging people to think about it in a way that will help you see what it is that's causing the anxiety, because my book really is written to people who are anxious about money. It's a very specific, I mean, I don't think anybody that just is not anxious about money would get that much out of it, to be honest, because it's more about how to overcome that anxiety.
I love that, Tari, especially right now. You know, with prices rising and a lot of insecurity on different matter, like it sounds like such a great resource that people need right now.
I hope so.
I want to give a shout out. As we're having this conversation, I just had an awareness that I haven't really had before, right? Because I know my money story coming from my grandparents and my parents. But what I had the realization, Shannon, earlier you called Aunt Joan's name.
Yes.
So my Aunt Joan, Tari, was my person and I was her person. And my Aunt Joan, and I'm realizing what an example she was for me as now an entrepreneur. because what she would do is she would work a job and she would save up all her money. But what her love and her passion was travel. So she
Mhm.
would save up all her money. She would give her 2 weeks notice and then she would go travel until she got to
Mm,
a certain amount of
mm,
money and she
mm.
knew she needed another job or another career path. And she did this almost my whole life, right? And it was 'cause to her, it wasn't the number in the bank account, it was her life experiences,
Mhm,
and then she ended up becoming a English, for she took up skydiving in Ireland and became a master jump master so she could travel and teach people how to jump out of airplanes, and
mm,
then, for one of her last careers, she went back and got her degree and taught English as a second language, but
mm.
she loved that because she loved people and teaching, but she also would meet these students and then travel to their home country and meet their family. Like, it was I think
Nice.
about I also inherited that money story.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, I inherited that money story of because my family money story was you get a degree, you get a job, and you suffer.
Mm. Mhm.
Right? In order to pay the
Mhm.
bills, in
Wow.
order to work, and until you could retire, and then,
Mhm.
like, and I was like, "Yeah, I don't wanna do that with my life."
Yeah.
And so, it's fascinating to me when I think about it, and again, thank you, Aunt Joan. Like, she was such an
Yes.
influence in my life, but I
Mhm.
didn't realize the money story was a part of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say if I had a money story, because I think about it, right, as we talk about what were the things you heard growing up. And
Mhm.
one thing my dad would say when he's doing these lawns is, "Baby, that money is spent already." And it's like, I wanna be ahead, I don't wanna be working this hard in the sun, getting up before the sun in the summer, doing all this, and it's already like, it's gone before we
Yeah.
made it? But the confidence where I come from, not knowing my family, so not knowing the money stories, but being able to see where different Black families are in America, it's like my anchor again is God, right? According to that abundance. It's not according to the holes that were in my shoes and the food that we didn't have when my dad was getting divorced again and I was brushing my teeth at school. I can't That's not the only story. We can also learn and that's why I love the 8 dimensions of wellness and intentionally getting connected to people who know and being able to ask the questions when certain things come up so that we can be better prepared for the next situation and then just pay attention and say, what are the questions on this level of the video game? What do I
Mhm.
need to figure out? How can we keep going and keep it sustainable?
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So, Terry, you've been telling us about your events. You're in Oklahoma right now. Can you
Right?
tell us what it's been like for you going out, sharing your new book, and what you have coming up for the next couple of hours that people can meet you at?
Well, what it's been like is it's so rewarding and so fulfilling. I've
Yes.
had 2 people in the last 2 days say, "I need to slow down reading your book because I don't want it to end." A book about money? Can you believe somebody would say that? Not 1 person, but 2? And,
Right.
and then I also heard from a person today who said she was working on revising, she and her husband were working on revising their trust. And because of something she had read in the book, they went back to their attorney and did it differently. And that was the first
Congratulations.
person I'd had who said, I did something differently because of what I read in your book. And the book's only been out 3 weeks. So I'm so very, very honored that people are relating to it. And that was my hope. It's full of compassion because I've lived this and I've lived the trouble and the hard life. And because of that, I wanted it to come from that place. And apparently that's where it's landing.
So I would love to share about that. Right. You told us about your moms, and actually let me stop and honor what you said about your events because we know as publicists, and we've been talking about all as publishers, we've been talking about events in our books and our authors. We know how big of a deal that is, right? So congratulations on that feedback. And I wanted to ask you, how did it
Thank
feel
you.
to hear, of course, how did it feel to hear that, and I know you said grateful, that your book already impacted generations. That's not just one person and their partner, like that's
Yeah,
generations. What did
that's
you think
right.
about when she said that?
Oh, I almost cried. I mean, I got goosebumps, and it was a really emotional experience for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we talk about helping our authors through the emotional part of writing books, right? Because it could be the people around you, but also the space that you're going to hold for the people that come. So that's beautiful.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah.
What
Now,
were you going to
Terry,
say?
I had a question because
Mhm.
if somebody reads your book, are you still doing private clients? Like if they
Yes.
say, so how does somebody work with you? Like
Mhm.
what does that look like for your clients?
Well, um, there are two parts of it. So I have a team of 3 other women, and we handle our clients' money. Their mail comes to our post office box, and we just completely, just like you probably, whoever in your family handles your money, pays your bills, transfers funds, all of that. We do all of that with our clients or for our clients. And then we, as you mentioned before, we do work with the wealth managers, and I go to those meetings with them. I go to the meetings with the estate attorneys. And so my team gathers all of the information that estate attorneys need if we're starting with a fresh plan. Or, of course, if it's a revision, we get all of that as well. But then what I do personally is I also do consulting, so that if somebody just would really like to just have somebody to bounce off some ideas and to try to maybe expedite the process of figuring out how did they get to this place to where money is such a uh, painful. I have so many clients who talk about it being physiologically painful to even think about money or to open
Wow.
their mail.
Mm.
And so those folks I work on an hourly basis as a consulting.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. And
Yeah.
it's really interesting because a lot of this stuff comes up with, like we said, when somebody passes away, or something
Yes.
medical. So I know when my mom was passing away, that's when the conversations are harder. Now somebody's sick and you're trying to have these
It's
conversations.
exactly right.
So I wanted to go a little more into your definition and how you would describe it to our listeners, the financial wealth versus financial wellness. How would you specifically show them the difference between that? And then no matter what level of wealth somebody has, how do they maintain their financial wellness?
Well, I think understanding how they got to the place where they are is a good starting place.
Yes.
Financial wealth, as we talked about, is often focused on an amount, a number, a status in life,
Mhm. Mhm.
the toys. I call them toys,
Mhm.
the
Mm.
boats, the cars, the whatever it might be that it
Wow.
gi- gives gives an illusion. Sometimes it's an
Right.
illusion of
Mhm.
wealth. Um, that's wealth. That's financial wealth.
Mhm.
Financial wellness is exactly what Christine talked about. It's the feeling of I'm going to be okay no
Yeah.
matter what. I'm going to be okay because I have myself. And maybe it's your faith in God or whatever else it might be,
Yeah.
but you know that you're going to be okay regardless of how much gas prices go up or
Right.
grocery prices go up. You
Yes.
you know that whatever comes, you'll deal with it.
Right.
That is financial wellness.
Yes. And for me, it's both, right? I definitely hold myself accountable for keeping the commitments I made to myself, right? Am I doing my profit first day? Am I looking at my receipts? Am I logging everything? Am I looking at the accounts? Um, and then when you know you do that, you can do that with any amount of money or no
That's
matter how
exactly
much is
right.
coming in. And it reminds me of what Christine said of Aunt Joan, right? If you're working full time, then your schedule looks like this: 40 hours plus transportation and getting ready. If you're traveling and stuff, pivot to your traveling schedule, your traveling routine, and figure out where you're going and what's needed for that country or that area, right? And it's the same thing financially. You might have more space in a different area. You might not have as much money coming in, but do you have more time with family? What can we take care of in this season? What were you missing in your last season when you were at work? How does it make sense for you to have off time right now? Like, how can we feel the quality of life? Because you may not be missing out as much as you think you are when we know how much it costs us to make the money that we go make when that's what we choose to
Exactly.
do,
Yes.
Ooh,
Yes.
Shannon, you took me right back to when my kids were tiny. And
Mm,
we had to look at the difference between 2 full-time working and paying for 2 childcare because
yeah.
childcare is ridiculous in our country. and making those decisions about number or quality of life and what does that look like. And,
Yeah.
it's so relevant, I think, for people. Like, I think it's so relevant about having the mindset about it, but
Mhm.
also just even having the conversation. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
what does that mean or what does that look like? And especially for women, because, I remember being in that stage and, there's different judgment or different shame that
Mhm.
there's I've done it all of that. I've worked full time
Yeah.
and my kids have been in childcare. I've worked part time and part time been home. I've been
Yeah.
home full time. Like,
Which did you
and
like?
I liked all of them for different reasons.
That makes
I
sense.
like all, but I have that entrepreneurial spirit, and so
Mhm.
working and I've always been a worker.
Mhm.
Even when I was a full-time homemaker, there was
Mhm.
some side gig or something going, and I think
Mhm.
that doing both, you know me, I like
Yeah.
to have it all. So,
Yeah,
raising
yeah,
my
I
kids
understand.
and doing a couple of side gigs at the same time,
Yeah.
but all of it's hard. I mean, that's the thing
Mhm.
I wanna say to our listeners, like, none of that to me is easy
No.
in regards to when we're raising our family and it's joyful, but it's a lot of work. Um,
Yeah.
but Terry, I'm thinking about we talked about before the show, and we haven't talked about it much here. When somebody has a block or when somebody has shame around money,
Mhm.
what would you recommend is the first step to addressing that?
I think the first step is figuring out why.
Mhm,
Whether it's a money story you inherited,
mhm,
or whether it's some event that happened in your life.
mhm,
There are events that happen in kids' lives, and maybe one of the children, if there are multiple kids in the family, it becomes life altering. It becomes
mhm,
it becomes part of their identity. And the other one, they just blow it off. It's no big deal. And again, I think this goes to how kids are hardwired. But whatever it is for you, for the person who struggles and feels shame and feels like, I don't know why everybody else can do this. Everybody else can manage their money. Why can't I? What is wrong with me? And of course, there's nothing wrong with you because
No.
it's not that everybody else can do it. They just aren't revealing it because nobody talks about it.
That's what it is.
And they're scared to talk about it, and they're afraid of what other people might think about them if they only knew. If they
Mhm.
only knew I was in debt to my eyeballs. If
Mhm.
they only knew how much student loan debt I'm still carrying.
Mhm.
Whatever it might be that just creates that feeling of shame, figure out why. What is it that's causing that?
Yeah.
And then just I call it unwrapping the onion. Just figure out layer by layer, where did this come from? What am I carrying forward of my family's history that was a friend shared a story with me about a little girl who loved to dress she had when she was 4 years old. And when she was 14, she tried to put on the dress, and guess what? It didn't fit. Well, we do the same thing with our money stories. We hear something as a child, we process it through a child's mind, and it sticks. And then we get older, it doesn't still apply. If it was something that was passed from generation to generation, maybe we get the idea that to be a member of this family, I have to
mhm,
believe that scarcity is my lot in life, which
mhm,
I truly did because of the
mhm.
of the generations before me. And
Right.
so to switch that from that scarcity to an abundance
Right.
mentality meant I had to decide that that was more important to me than carrying on my family legacy. And it
Mm,
was huge. It was hard.
Well, what I was in I'm trying to word it so I don't sound like I'm rewriting your story because I don't wanna rewrite what you said, but I would love to give you more space in that and maybe use what Christine says, both can be true, right? That
Yeah,
was the story, and so was the resilience. These ladies made it through. They went to school, they made
absolutely.
mhm,
their money, they held it
mhm,
down, and that is also what you're doing, and you help other people do that for the generations,
And
you
that
know?
is why the thing that really changed for me
Mhm,
was when I read a book called The Drama of the Gifted Child. And
mhm,
it talked about how every life experience we've ever had has made us the person we are today.
mhm,
And when
mm,
there was something about that sentence that resonated at such a deeply core level that I could literally be so grateful
Mhm.
for
Mm,
all of what that resiliency you're talking about, and for
Right.
all of the things that my great grandmother had endured, my grandmother had endured, my mother had endured, and and that I had endured as a child
mhm.
Right.
that were very painful. And yet, because of all of that, I am who I am today. And
Mm.
because
Yes.
I happen to love who I am today, another
Mhm.
thing I didn't think would ever happen, that
Wow.
I could embrace that and celebrate it.
Right?
I
Yes.
truly
And
do.
be a best-selling author and an honored guest at a dinner tonight, which we've got to get you
Yes.
to. So, Terry, I feel like we could just keep talking and having more and deeper conversations about this, and I can't wait to finish reading your book and share with more people because I'm just delighted to hear your wisdom. But I think we probably should transition to wisdom in action. So,
Mm.
Shannon, you want to set us up for this?
Yeah, and I definitely hear what you're saying, right? And where you were, the stories and how we choose. We talked about that, and we talked about the weight of being an author and being on tour and publishing a book and how we maintain our wellness through that. So with that being where you are this week, what is your wisdom and action that you're doing intentionally for your financial wellness to make sure that you're maintaining where you are?
I am taking care of myself. I'm making
Mhm.
sure that I'm getting rest and that I'm eating well, and I am invigorated by my friends and people I'm seeing on this tour, especially coming home to Oklahoma.
Yes.
And you had asked earlier, and I didn't answer your question, Shannon. I have
Hmm.
a book signing tomorrow.
Yes,
Tomorrow,
ma'am.
tomorrow
Love
evening
it. We'll take both.
at 6:30, at Full Circle Bookstore in Oklahoma City, and that was a dream of bringing my baby home. I wanted all along as I was writing it on Kauai to be
Mm,
able to bring it home, and I'm
yeah,
just so thrilled with the number of people who have said they're coming, and I'm looking forward to seeing friends. I've got a friend from kindergarten who's coming in from Pennsylvania,
I
and
love
so
it.
I'm just being celebrated, and I'm relishing in it.
Oh,
Good.
congrats.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
There is nothing better than long-term friendships.
Mhm.
Like,
Yes.
oh, that is good stuff. Shannon,
Yeah.
what are you doing for your wisdom in action this week?
Hmm. Financial. I will say hashtag. I think I could use it. Hashtag organized 365
Okay.
because Lisa was on our podcast and I missed that week, right? But her book, Escaping Quicksand, and her
Mhm.
podcast, the Organized 365 podcast, has really as an organizing person, we talk about me doing that. I've been loving it, right?
I knew you would.
Oh, it's good. It's good. Her stories and the doctorate and her research is amazing. And one thing that I've really taken away is we absolutely clean the busy parts of our house, right? Because that's where everybody goes and it's going to be the first place that gets messed up. So don't go bonkers. Don't feel like all of it was for nothing. I could see so many people flipping out. I could see me in the future having flipped out. She's like, organize your stuff. So I'm getting my life together. I'm organizing my stuff and my systems help keep everything else sustainable. So I'm organizing each day, not overwhelming myself and being intentional and pacing it out.
Mm, I love
Hmm.
that. I
Thank
love
you.
that.
What
Yeah.
about you? What are you doing for your wisdom in action?
Well, from this conversation, I think I'm gonna say hashtag have more conversations. Because I
Mhm.
think I wanna have some more conversations because both my kids are just launched, uh, this well, it's been about a year now, but,
Mhm.
we had conversations before, they've been out on their own, there's some transitions happening, I think it's time for some more conversations as young
Nice.
adults and to follow up with that. So thank you
Mm.
so much, Terry. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you
Yes.
for your openness and authenticity around
Mhm.
money. And we're just grateful to be connected to you.
Well, I'm grateful as well. I This has been so much fun. I knew it was going to be. I've been looking forward to it,
Thank
and
you.
I just so appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Have a great dinner. You're
Yes.
the honored guest and just enjoy. We know as authors what it takes to get a book past the finish line.
Mhm.
Folks can find your book. We'll put it in our show notes. You can find your book wherever books are sold. Will you hold it up one more time? And also, there you go, y'all. The Emotional Side of Money, A
Yes.
Roadmap to Financial Wellness by Tari K. Vickery. She also has already done the audiobook. So if you want to listen to it, it's
And it's good.
available and it's good. So
Yeah.
y'all go get it.
Thank
And
you.
we will share on our show notes. So if you're driving or running or doing errands, don't worry about it. You can find it at womenconnectedinwisdompodcast.com. And Tari, have a great evening and the rest of your trip. Just soak it all in.
Yes.
Thank you so much. This has been a fun part of it.
Thank
All
you so
right.
much.
More
Glad to
soon.
have you. Peace, Terry. Yes, of course.
Oh my gosh, so good.
Ah, yes.
So good.
It's it really it makes me sad thinking about how much weight people are holding on that they could let go of if they shared with people around them, the
Right.
safe places around them, So I hope that this podcast helps people do that. And especially around financial because we do spend so much of our lives trying to get to a certain place so that we can support the people and do the things. So yeah. And what a great conversation.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. Anything else we need to let everybody know before we jump for episode 227?
Right? Next
Yeah.
week, we're going to be doing a season wrap. It'll be
Yes.
you and I next week. So
Mhm.
hope folks will join us live at 5
Yes.
o'clock next Wednesday. And
Yes.
hi. In the
Yeah.
meantime,
Be well, be wise, be whole. Thank you guys. Talk to you later. Peace.
Thanks for listening. This has been the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. On air live on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern via Facebook and YouTube. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be part of the conversation and get connected at womenconnectedinwisdom.com.